Have you noticed that there are a lot of really angry men out there right now? I mean, some angry women too, but really a lot of angry men. And quite a lot of them are evidently Trump supporters. And I don't understand why they're so angry. Really, I don't. Because they've gotten everything that they wanted, right? A few months ago, I made a video. It was right after Election Day. And it got thousands of hits on it. The MAGA hate is confusing to me. Because I was getting a lot of really misogynistic comments from men on my videos. And I didn't understand why. I mean, because you won everything, so why are you upset? But here we are, months later, they're still upset. They still are out there spreading hate and to total strangers. And I'll be honest, there are times when I fall into that too, when I'm reading something that gets me so worked up that I forget to take a breath and I respond. I don't do that very often, but every once in a while I do. I've noticed when I do it on YouTube, which is very rare, I usually get a nastygram from YouTube. And apparently YouTube doesn't apply this to MAGA people, because I get all kinds of misogynistic comments from people and unsolicited advice. By the way, I think that most advice, unless I've asked for it, is unsolicited, and I'm not a big fan of that. Because it's usually, in its core, when you give somebody unsolicited advice, you're criticizing them. And a lot of times you don't have their perspective. But anyway, I don't want to digress too much on that point. I do want to talk about a video that I saw this morning by Tom Powell Jr., and I'll put a link to it in my description. He found TikTok videos made by a guy named Reid, who says that pretty women are all just a bunch of spoiled brats who need to be disciplined. And I'm guessing by the likes of him that he's the one to do it. Probably because he's an incel and he's frustrated because nobody will give him the time of day. But then you hear him talking about how pretty women have what he calls a TNA card, which is tits and ass, I guess is what he means, where they manipulate men into buying things for them or doing things for them, and then they don't put out, or they don't want to be in a relationship with them. And I don't know anything about that. I myself didn't really date much, and I've only been with one man, and that's my husband. And it has nothing to do with religion, by the way. It was mainly a practical decision on my part. And now that I see how the world is going, I'm really glad that I didn't have a bunch of men in my past. That's just me. That's how I feel. I don't feel like that's how I live my life. But other people, if it's not how you live your life, no big deal, okay? But you have these men who I think probably are very much inspired by Donald Trump and his minions. And you have people like Tucker Carlson comparing America to a naughty little girl who needs Daddy Trump to give her a spanking. And you have Trump talking about protecting the women whether they want it or not, as he is criticized for sexually abusing and objectifying women. And there are a lot of angry men out there who like that message, and they like the idea of making a woman go back into the kitchen or get on her back for them, make them sandwiches and make them babies, and don't vote and don't have opinions and make sure the house is clean. And they don't see women as people. They see them as objects. And preferably they want them to be young and hot and pretty and fertile and good cooks. That helps too, but certainly not if they're also fat. There are men that feel like this is an entitlement for them. And Donald Trump and his buddies push this idea. And you're seeing it in the misogynistic comments that people will leave. I woke up to one this morning. I was on Facebook yesterday, and somebody had shared this picture of JFK and Trump, and a caption that said, "We went from JFK to Trump." And, I wasn't really thinking, and I just wrote, "He cheated." I was talking about Donald Trump, but I could have been talking about JFK, because he was well known for being a philanderer. He cheated on Jackie many times when they were married. And then a woman came along and pointed out that Trump cheated on all his wives. And I said, "I meant Trump." And she said, "Oh, sorry, I misunderstood." I mean, it was my fault. I wasn't clear. But then I woke up this morning, and some guy who had a very boomer look to him, not that I like to use ageist terms, but he appeared to be an older white man who called me a libtard slut. Now, first off, I'm really not a liberal. I'm a centrist. I'm voting for liberals because liberals right now are the sane ones. But I am not, by any stretch, a leftist. I do agree with a lot of liberal ideas. I like the liberal social side, but generally speaking, I'm more of a centrist. I'm also not a slut because, as I mentioned, I've never been promiscuous. There are many things you could say about me, but I am not, in any stretch, a slut. But this person doesn't know me. It's kind of like the same type of man who, whenever there's a news article about abortion, or they're on a page about reproductive rights for women, they always wander in these spaces as if they're looking to argue with people and thinking they're going to change anybody's minds, which they're not. I remember one I saw a few years ago. This guy wrote very condescendingly to women, "Just don't act like a garden tool and you'll be fine." And my response was, "Stop using your garden tool to fertilize our gardens." And then he called me a slut. He said I let all these dicks into my garden. And no, I haven't, actually. I really haven't. But it takes two, right? And if it were men who were threatened with pregnancy and everything that comes with pregnancy, they would be demanding their rights. They wouldn't want to be told that they have to birth. And they probably would object to the idea that it's their fault. 100% their fault. I mean, a lot of these folks blame women for being attractive. They call them temptresses. They blame women for getting raped. They blame women for getting pregnant. They even say things like, "You got yourself pregnant." Women don't get pregnant unless men get them pregnant. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, it really doesn't even matter. They often talk about looks, and they often talk about how they expect you to be hot for them. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter. And they feel fine right now, totally emboldened to use really dehumanizing, misogynistic language. And they're angry. They're angry even though they won. Is it because women are just not falling in line? That we are daring to speak up and protest? And how dare we? We should just accept that Trump won, get over it, and get on our backs for them. I mean, for me, I guess I would just be good for making sandwiches. There's more I could say about this, but I don't want to make this a long video. I've already tried to make this video, and I've had technical difficulties, and I've gone off on tangents that I don't mean to. But I do want to make a comment about a book I read recently, and I reviewed it on my blog. It was written by Tia Levings, and you will find her on YouTube if you look for her. The book is called A Well-Trained Wife. And it's basically about how she had married this guy when she was young, thinking he was an upstanding Christian man, and it turned out that he wanted her to be in a domestic discipline relationship. She had several children with him, and had a really tough time getting out of that relationship. But there are a lot of men out there who have this idea that this is what we should have. And we have leaders now who are promoting it, and they are pushing policies like Project 2025. And they're lying about their involvement and belief in these policies. And even if they aren't directly controlling women in their lives, they're leaving disrespectful comments because they don't like what they say. And it's all in an attempt to shut them up and get them to go back to a different life where women had no rights and they were basically chattel. It's very, very sad and disheartening that in 2025 this is going on. And it's happening in a country where we're all conditioned to believe we're the home of the free and the land of the brave. It's just a bunch of horse shit, frankly. And it's very, very sad when you see people that you thought were decent, but they would not be protecting someone like Anne Frank. These are people that are cheering when other human beings are being forcibly and brutally removed from our society and sent to El Salvador, where they're being beaten up and mistakenly incarcerated, even though they're not criminals and they've had no due process. There are a lot of men that are all for it. There are some women that are for it too, but I think it's really the men. It's like a last desperate grab for what they see is slipping away from them, that power that they had at one time that's going away because people are evolving. So it's like this is the last death throes of the patriarchy. And if we're not careful, they're going to get a purchase on it, and we're all going to be chattel. So keep that in mind. It's depressing, I'm sorry, but I will put the link to that video that inspired today's video so you can have a look at Reid, the man who thinks that women are all pretty women. Not ugly women. Pretty women are spoiled brats who need to be disciplined and tamed and given spankings. It's pretty gross. I would recommend keeping some barf bags nearby.